What's up guys, welcome to the channel. In this episode, we're gonna do something a little bit different. I wanna teach you guys how to buy rental properties, what to look out for, and we're gonna address two of the main concerns most people have when it comes to buying real estate. Number one is, where the heck do I get the money? Everything is so dang expensive. And number two is, it's so expensive that none of the rents actually cover the expenses, so we can't actually turn a profit. So I'm gonna show you guys with real life examples, property that we own, and show you guys how much we're making on each one. Full disclaimer, we bought these property cash. And I understand you're gonna be like, well, where do I get the cash? But I'm gonna show you guys that with a mortgage, you will still make money. You ready? Let's go. You're probably wondering right now, like, why should I even buy real estate? Well, you guys know that most people make their wealth in real estate, but you're probably wondering how, and I'm gonna tell you. Real estate packs a load of benefits. You have tax write-offs, you have cash flow, which is the money that the rents are bringing in and what you keep, that's cash flow. And then number three, you have appreciation. Now, depending on which market you buy, some areas will appreciate more than others. And I got a funny story. I bought my very first property for $380,000 back in 2014 or 15. Fast forward to 2023, even with this economic crisis that we're in, that property today is worth easily $900,000. Not to mention, when I originally bought the property, you know, the way it stood, the rent was only about $3,000. Today, that single property brings in a little under $9,000 a month. That is the power of rents rising, property getting more expensive, and I did nothing but own the property and rode the wave. So, do yourself a favor, watch the rest of this video, and if you like what you hear so far, hit that subscribe button, give me a like, give me a comment, but let's get right into it, okay? Okay guys, so full disclaimer, these properties are not in my backyard. I bought a lot of property in California, I bought a lot of property in the Bay Area, and I decided, look, it costs way too much, and just like to your point, it doesn't cash flow. I'm not making anything. I'm actually losing a few $1,000s a month on new properties that I'm buying. So instead, I went out and searched across the nation. I've looked in Ohio, which has some good properties, but even that market's getting a little too expensive. But I ultimately landed in Alabama. Okay, guys? Alabama's really good, and I'm gonna explain to you guys why. Let's go through the properties. Property number one. I hit the address because I don't want you guys coming to my property. But it was listed for $99,000, and because you know, the market's a little tough right now, interest rates are high, and I wrote cash, I got the property for $90,000, so almost 10% discount right off the bat. In addition, I got $2,200 in seller credits, which will help me pay for closing costs and actually bring this price down a little bit more as well. The cool thing about the rent was when it was being marketed, it was only being marketed for $875 a month, which still makes sense, it still works. But when I looked through the leases, it was actually getting $915, which is a good bump because that's gonna help us with the cash on cash, which I'll explain right now. But one of the biggest things we have to worry about when owning properties are the expenses. What are the property tax? And in California, property tax are 1.2% on average, which is very expensive. So on $1 million property, it's $12,000. Alabama has one of the lowest property tax bills in the nation. And so with property tax, property management of 8%, 5% in maintenance every month, and we actually included the insurance as well. It comes out to $3,000 a year. And you're gonna wonder, how did I get this cash on cash? Cash on cash is 8.8%, right? Which means that I put out $90,000, and after everything's said and done, I get 8.8% annual return on my money. Now, if you guys are into finances, you know that anything above 7% is phenomenal. And the reason why is because the banks right now, even if you put it in a money market savings or a CD account, you're only gonna get probably 5.3, 5.4. So we're beating that, which is fantastic. And I'm not even gonna mention that that's only one part of the benefit. That's the cash flow, okay? The tax savings, because me living in California, I pay a lot of tax on the money that I earn. So this $90,000 purchase that we are buying the property for, after we do something called a cost segregation study, I should probably get about a $30,000 depreciation on that property. And in California, that results in about anywhere from a $10,000 to a $15,000 savings for me. So if you take that, I got $15,000 savings from the IRS. I got 8.8% return on my money. And then the final thing is appreciation. Now, in Alabama, properties don't appreciate so much, but we don't know, right? Population is growing. The area is starting to develop a little bit more. So if it goes up 2 to 3% a year, let's say 5 years from now, I'll make an additional 15% return on 90,000. So give or take 12,000, 13,000. You add that all up, guys, I mean, that's a whole lot of money. So that's property number one. The takeaway here is you want to make sure that for the cash flow, you're beating whatever the money market, the banks are giving you. And typically I try to gun for 10%, but 8.8 isn't bad because the property manager is going to be taking a good chunk. But let me tell you something. Here's a cool thing about real estate. Every year, you can typically raise the rent 3%. So if I raise this up in 3% in year one, in year two I raise it an additional 3%, guess what happens? My cash on cash is going to continue to rise. And that's the beautiful thing. Let's go over on property number two. Property number two is a little bit more expensive, but let me share with you guys how property number two is a little bit different than property number one. Even though it's more expensive, my cash on cash is going to go up slightly. So let's go into it. Property number two is in a better location, a better neighborhood. They were asking $123,000. I came in at $110,000 and they accepted the offer. I didn't get as much credit back because the seller's not in, I guess, a rush to sell, or he needs to sell as bad as the other two. But they gave me $700 towards closing costs. I'll take it, right? The rent for this one is going to be paid for by Section 8. And if you don't know what Section 8 is a government program that is assists people by helping pay their rent. So this income is kind of good. This is a traveling nurse who's paying this, which has a very stable job, but there's always the risk that she may or may not pay rent, right? With Section 8, you're almost guaranteed a good chunk of this will be paid. So that's what we like. The expenses for this one is a little bit higher because it's a little bit more expensive and therefore a little bit more wear and tear. I factored in 5% as well for the maintenance costs. And then because this is a higher rent amount, the property management is going to take a slightly larger amount. It's still 8%, but 8% of $1,100 is going to be more than 8% of $915. So that's where that $3,300 in expenses a year. So you're probably wondering how I got the cash on cash, okay? This is how you do the cash on cash. You're going to go the expenses, $3,000, right? You're going to take the rent. You multiply that by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So 915 times 12 is 10,980, right? So you're going to get $7,980. So that's my income for the year. I bought the property for $90,000. So you're going to take $7,980 divided by $90,000, okay? That gives me 8.86%. Okay? I hope that makes sense. Because my income is $7,980, but I spent $90,000. So therefore, my cash on cash return is 8.86%. Okay, pretty good. Let's get rid of this. The final property, right? Somewhere in between both, $105,000. I wrote $95,000. I got a $2,200 seller credit. The rent is also $1,100 because these are all 3-bedroom, 2-bath, by the way. Sorry I didn't write that, but they're 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and a 3-2 in Alabama in this part of town. The voucher will pay $1,100. Expenses are roughly the same. It's actually going to be a little bit less, to be honest with you, because I think the maintenance is going to be a lot lower, but you can expect to make 9% as well, okay? So I promise to share with you guys, you're probably wondering, well, you're only making 9% because you paid cash for the property. Great, okay? You're right. But let me show you guys, if you were to buy this property, right, with the loan, let me show you guys the math real quick, okay? So assuming you can get a loan, they're going to require you to put 25% down. So you do have to come up with some money. Real estate isn't, free, right? But 20%, 25% actually, and granted, if you actually live in these, like an area like this, then you can probably get away with something less. But if you're going to do what I did on some of my other properties, you're going to put 25% down. So for property 1, your down payment is $22,500. Okay? You're going to minus $90,000. So your loan is $67,500. If your loan $67,000 on a 30-year fix, even at 7.5, okay? Do that again. So loan amount $67,500. 7.5%. Now, as I speak today, the rates have gone down a little bit, but that's kind of high, 7.5%. Your monthly is going to be $471.97. Okay? Now again, my expenses are $3,000, right? So $3,000 divided by 12 is $250 a month. If I add $257, my total $721.97. Okay? Now I'm going to subtract that and that. $915 minus $721.97 leaves me a profit of $193.03. Now you're probably wondering, that's not a whole lot of money. I get it. That's why I say property, you're not going to get rich off of one property, but you got to get your feet wet. So if you do 193 times 12, gives you $2,300 a year. Well, how much down did you put? You put $22,500. So you're going to divide 20. You take the annual number, which is $2,316.36, divided by 22,500, gives you actually a return of 10.29%. And that, guys, is why you buy real estate. Because really, by buying this $90,000 property, you only put out $22,500. You're bringing home off the money that you put down 10.29%. And that's why you buy real estate. Not to mention, if you're a real estate if you're a real estate professional, which I am, I'm a full-time real estate investor, I get to do the cost segregation study on the full amount, so you get the same tax benefits as me, okay? Not to mention, again, you get the appreciation, you get the cash flow, you get the taxes, and that, guys, is why we buy real estate. So I wanted to do the math because sometimes people just don't do the math. And also, the biggest problem with real estate that I hear a lot of people make is, why would I put out all that money to only make $193 a month. Because the truth is, if you don't put the money here, you're probably going to blow it. And the truth that people never tell you about is that with real estate, it's the accumulation. So when you're able to buy things that, you're buying down the debt on the property, so eventually one day when you're about 30 years from now, because this is a 30-year mortgage, right? So today I'm 32. When I'm 62, this property will be paid off, and I will be making what I make up here. But what happens in 30 years? A lot. That market could obviously go up. Rent could be $2,000 a month now. The property in 30 years could be worth $300,000, right? And all you did was make the decision to buy it 30 years ago, let a renter pay off the debt, and now when you're retired, you have stable income coming in. And also you have something to give your kids when you pass away. And they can pass it down to their kids. And imagine that you buy 10 of these, right? And you're probably wondering, how the hell am I going to buy 10? The truth is that after 5 properties, it gets kind of easy to buy the 6th. After 6 properties, it gets easy to buy the 7th. You're wondering like, no, that doesn't make sense. It does. Give me a second. Because imagine if you have 6 of these properties making almost $200 a month, 6 times 200, right? Now you're making some real money. Now you're making $1,200 a month. Now you're making almost $13,000 a year. And every 2 years, you have another down payment, then another down payment. And you keep buying, you keep accumulating. It's the snowball effect. So with me, the first 3 properties were the hardest because I bought them in California and I needed 20% down. And 20% down on at the average property was $500,000, $600,000, and $700,000. It costs a lot of money. Out here, to save $22,000, especially if you live in California, saving $22,000, you can probably do it in a year. I'm not saying it's easy. You got to make sacrifices. You're going to have to eat Costco hot dogs like I did almost every day, $1.50, so that I could save up and start buying more real estate. So I hope this gives you guys some clarity. I really wanted to make the video to just share with you guys the power of real estate and how you can do it, how you can buy it. If you have any questions, if you need lenders or you need a realtor in Alabama, make sure you reach out. I'll be able to help you. Buy more real estate, guys. It's the best thing you'll ever do.